Social anxiety is more than just shyness. It's a deep, often overwhelming fear of judgment in social situations. It can hold you back, distort your self-image, and prevent you from connecting with others. But what if ancient Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius held the keys to overcoming it? Their timeless wisdom can help shift your mindset and empower you to face social fears with courage and composure. In this article, we'll explore 6 powerful Stoic strategies that can transform your social anxiety into social confidence. In this guide, we'll dive into 6 transformative Stoic strategies. 1. Focusing on what you can control, Epictetus. 2. Reframing negative thoughts, Seneca. 3. Accepting discomfort, Marcus Aurelius. 4. Setting realistic expectations, Epictetus and Seneca. 5. Visualizing success, Marcus Aurelius. 6. Building Stoic resilience and self-compassion, reframe negative thoughts, Seneca. Building on the Stoic idea of focusing on what you can control, the next crucial step in overcoming social anxiety is learning to reframe your negative thoughts. Often, social anxiety stems from our irrational interpretations of situations, which can be much more terrifying in our minds than in reality. Imagine this. You've been invited to a party, but instead of feeling excitement, your mind spirals into panic. You imagine yourself saying something embarrassing, being ignored, or everyone laughing at you. These thoughts can paralyze you before you even step through the door. This was the case for Sarah, a young woman who struggled with severe social anxiety. Every time she faced a group setting, her mind flooded with worst-case scenarios. She'd rehearse every conversation, fearing she'd say the wrong thing or do something awkward. The fear of judgment was so overwhelming that she often canceled plans or stayed in the background, missing out on opportunities to connect with others. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher who deeply understood the power of perception, taught that it is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. In other words, it's not the event itself, like attending a social gathering, that causes us distress, but rather how we interpret it. Our anxious thoughts are often exaggerated and unfounded. By reframing those thoughts, we can significantly reduce anxiety and regain control over our emotions. The first step to reframing is to recognize when your mind is spiraling. For example, Sarah began noticing the negative scripts running in her mind. Thoughts like, "I'll embarrass myself," or "I'll be the odd one out." Once she became aware of these patterns, she could challenge them. She asked herself, is there any real evidence that these things will happen? Have they happened before? What if I'm overestimating the risk? By questioning the validity of her thoughts, Sarah was able to create a more realistic and balanced view of the situation. Next, Sarah practiced replacing negative thoughts with more constructive ones. Instead of thinking, "I'm going to make a fool of myself," she tried, "everyone at this event is likely feeling just as nervous as I am. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to be myself." This shift in thinking allowed Sarah to approach social situations with greater confidence and less fear. And while it didn't happen overnight, she gradually found herself less paralyzed by negative thoughts and more present in the moment. This technique is rooted in Seneca's Stoic practice of cognitive reframing, which helps transform anxiety-inducing scenarios into opportunities for growth. When we stop catastrophizing and focus on the present, we free ourselves from unnecessary mental burdens. Social anxiety loses its grip when we learn to see the bigger picture and accept that making mistakes or being imperfect is part of being human. Through reframing, we don't eliminate anxiety, but we diminish its power over us, empowering ourselves to engage more fully with the world. By changing the way you view social situations, you can create a new narrative, one that is not dictated by fear, but by confidence and curiosity. Just like Sarah, who learned to enjoy social events without the weight of perfectionism, you can reframe your negative thoughts and experience the freedom that comes from letting go of imagined judgments. Practice acceptance of discomfort, Marcus Aurelius. After learning to reframe negative thoughts, the next step in overcoming social anxiety is embracing discomfort itself. This might sound counterintuitive at first. Why would anyone want to accept feeling anxious or uncomfortable? But Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, offered a profound insight. The obstacle is the way. What he meant was that discomfort, anxiety, and fear are not things to be avoided, but opportunities for growth. By accepting the discomfort, rather than running from it, we can learn to handle it with grace and resilience. Take the story of James, a college student who dreaded public speaking. Even the thought of standing in front of a class sent his heart racing. His palms would sweat, his voice would quiver, and he'd lose his ability to think clearly. For years, he avoided presentations, choosing to do written reports instead. But one day, after reading Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, he realized that avoiding discomfort wasn't helping him, it was feeding his anxiety. Marcus teaches us that discomfort is a natural part of life and should be accepted as part of our human experience. What stands in the way becomes the way. For James, this meant recognizing that his fear of public speaking wasn't something that would disappear by avoiding it. Instead, he needed to face it directly and embrace the discomfort. This process starts by shifting your mindset. When you feel anxiety creeping in, rather than resisting or wishing it would go away, try accepting it as part of the process. Marcus Aurelius himself struggled with inner turmoil, but he found peace by reminding himself that external events couldn't control his peace unless he allowed them to. Social anxiety, too, is an external event, a reaction to situations beyond your control. But the way you respond to it is entirely within your power. James decided to embrace his anxiety. Instead of avoiding class presentations, he chose to prepare by acknowledging his fear. He would remind himself, this discomfort is not a threat, it's an opportunity to grow stronger. In his mind, the anxiety he felt before speaking was simply his body preparing for the challenge ahead. By accepting it rather than fearing it, he gave himself permission to step into the discomfort without expecting perfection. Over time, he found that each presentation became a little easier, and his confidence grew, not because the discomfort vanished, but because he learned how to coexist with it. This acceptance of discomfort is not about resignation, it's about transformation. It's about reframing how you view anxiety and seeing it as something you can control, not something that controls you. When you stop fighting discomfort, you begin to see it as part of the journey, not something to avoid at all costs. Marcus Aurelius taught that life's challenges, whether they are social anxiety or personal obstacles, are not hindrances but opportunities to practice virtue. When you face discomfort head-on, you become more resilient, and the fear that once dominated your social interactions loses its power. Just as James learned, you, too, can find peace in discomfort, transforming every anxious moment into a stepping stone toward greater confidence and self-mastery. Set realistic expectations. Epictetus and Seneca. Building on the idea of accepting discomfort, the next step in overcoming social anxiety is setting realistic expectations. One of the most common traps we fall into when battling social anxiety is expecting perfection. We think that every social interaction must go smoothly, that we must always say the right thing, or that we need to be liked by everyone. When we inevitably fail to meet these unrealistic standards, our anxiety grows. But Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca remind us that this pursuit of perfection is not only futile, it's counterproductive. Take the example of Emily, a young professional who had just started a new job. She was eager to impress her colleagues, but with every interaction, her nerves would skyrocket. She would rehearse conversations in her head, worried about saying the wrong thing or coming off as awkward. Emily's expectation? That she should be the perfect employee, always confident and poised in every social situation. However, this constant pressure to be perfect left her feeling paralyzed with anxiety. She feared that a single misstep would ruin her reputation or cause people to judge her harshly. This is where the teachings of Epictetus come into play. Epictetus believed that the key to peace of mind lies in distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, he wrote, and the only path to freedom is through discipline and control. Epictetus encouraged us to accept our imperfections and set realistic goals for ourselves. We can control our actions and reactions, but we can't control how others perceive us or how every conversation unfolds. When we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves, expecting every social encounter to be flawless, we set ourselves up for failure and increase our anxiety. Seneca echoed this sentiment, emphasizing that we should focus on doing our best without expecting to be flawless. He suggested that instead of expecting perfect social outcomes, we should aim for progress. Emily's journey, like many of ours, required a shift in mindset, from striving for perfection to simply aiming to be present and authentic. She began to acknowledge that it was okay to feel nervous, that she didn't need to perform perfectly in every social setting. Instead, She focused on small, manageable goals, initiating a conversation, asking a colleague about their day, or simply showing up without expecting to be the center of attention. By setting more realistic expectations, Emily discovered that her anxiety began to fade. She gave herself permission to make mistakes and learn from them. This shift in perspective helped her realize that most people are not as focused on her every move as she thought. In fact, they were likely feeling just as anxious about social interactions as she was. When we set realistic expectations, accepting that discomfort is part of the journey and imperfection is human, we free ourselves from the crushing weight of self-imposed pressure. Social interactions no longer become something to dread, but something to engage in with curiosity and grace. Just like Emily, you can learn to embrace social situations without the need for them to be perfect. By adjusting your expectations, you begin to experience social life more fully and with far less anxiety. And in doing so, you'll find that every interaction, no matter how imperfect, becomes an opportunity for growth and connection. Visualize positive social experiences. Marcus Aurelius. Building on the idea of setting realistic expectations, the next powerful tool in overcoming social anxiety is the practice of visualization. If you've ever felt nervous before a social event, you're not alone. Many people with social anxiety find themselves mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios. What if I say something stupid? Or what if everyone ignores me? But what if, instead of imagining failure, you could shift your focus to visualizing success? This is where the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius comes in. He believed in the power of mental preparation, and by visualizing positive social experiences, we can train our minds to approach social situations with confidence and ease. Consider the story of Ryan, a young man who struggled with social gatherings. Whether it was a work party or a casual get-together with friends, his mind would always race with thoughts of rejection and judgment. He'd rehearse what he would say, but somehow, nothing ever felt right. The anxiety would build up to the point where he almost wanted to cancel every invitation. However, after reading Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, Ryan was struck by his focus on mental preparation. Marcus wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the way we think shapes our reality. If Ryan continued to picture social scenarios as disasters, his experiences would always align with those fearful thoughts. Marcus Aurelius often practiced visualization as a way of preparing himself for difficult situations. Before a big meeting or a challenging conversation, he would imagine the best possible outcome: calm, productive, and composed. Ryan decided to give this a try. Instead of mentally rehearsing his fears, he began to picture himself walking into a social event with confidence. He visualized himself engaging in casual conversation, laughing with colleagues, and leaving the event feeling positive and at ease. He didn't aim for perfection. Instead, he focused on just being present and authentic. At first, Ryan's mind would rebel against this new approach. He'd slip back into his old habits of imagining awkward silences or being ignored. But he persisted. Each time he caught himself in a cycle of negative thoughts, he would consciously redirect his focus to the positive imagery he had created. He visualized the interactions going smoothly, focusing on his ability to stay calm, enjoy the moment, and not overthink every word he spoke. Over time, Ryan noticed a significant shift in how he approached social events. The anxiety that once consumed him started to fade. By visualizing positive outcomes, his mind became more comfortable with social interactions. The practice didn't eliminate his nerves entirely, but it helped him manage them with a sense of control and calm. He found that when he visualized success, his social experiences became less daunting and more enjoyable. Visualization is a simple yet powerful tool for anyone struggling with social anxiety. By mentally rehearsing positive scenarios, you can shift your mindset and increase your confidence. Just like Ryan, you can transform your approach to social situations, turning what once seemed like intimidating challenges into opportunities for growth. Through the power of visualization, you can train your mind to expect positive experiences, ultimately helping you overcome anxiety and embrace social life with a renewed sense of calm and assurance. Build Stoic self-compassion and resilience. Building on the power of visualization, the final step in overcoming social anxiety is cultivating Stoic self-compassion and resilience. While visualization can prepare your mind for social encounters, true emotional growth comes from developing the ability to bounce back from setbacks and treat yourself with kindness in the face of imperfection. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca all emphasize the importance of self-compassion and resilience, two qualities that can radically transform the way we deal with social anxiety. Take the story of Alex, a college student who faced crippling social anxiety. Every time he was invited to hang out with friends or attend a group study session, the dread would wash over him. He'd worry about how he appeared, whether he would be left out, or if he'd say something embarrassing. One evening, after an awkward interaction with a classmate, Alex was ready to give up. He was ashamed of himself and thought, "I'm never going to be able to handle these situations. I'll always be this way." But after reflecting on Marcus Aurelius' teachings, Alex realized that he was not being kind to himself. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Instead of seeing his social missteps as failures, Alex began to view them as opportunities for growth. He understood that the discomfort he felt was part of the process, and that resilience came from how he responded to these setbacks, not from avoiding them. This mindset shift was crucial. Instead of berating himself for every awkward moment, Alex began practicing self-compassion. He acknowledged that it was okay to feel nervous, that social situations weren't about being perfect, but about learning and evolving. He started saying to himself, "I'm doing my best, and that's enough." This shift from self-criticism to self-compassion made a world of difference. He learned to forgive himself for minor mistakes and treat himself with the same kindness he would offer a friend in the same situation. Resilience, as Stoicism teaches, is not about avoiding pain or discomfort but about how we respond to it. Every time Alex faced a new social situation, he embraced it as a chance to practice resilience. Even if things didn't go as planned, he recognized that his growth didn't depend on the outcome, but on his ability to keep showing up and trying. His anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but his ability to face it with patience and persistence grew stronger. This Stoic approach, of practicing self-compassion and resilience, can be incredibly liberating for those struggling with social anxiety. When you embrace the truth that you are a work in progress, you no longer need to be perfect to be worthy. Instead of judging yourself for your anxiety or mistakes, you learn to see them as part of your journey toward becoming stronger and more self-assured. Just like Alex, you too can learn to treat yourself with kindness, practice resilience in the face of discomfort, and ultimately build the emotional strength needed to navigate social situations with confidence. By adopting this Stoic mindset, you can turn every anxious moment into a stepping stone toward a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Embrace Stoic wisdom for a calm, confident social life building on the foundation of self-compassion and resilience. The final step in overcoming social anxiety is to fully embrace Stoic wisdom in your everyday life. The teachings of Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius are not just philosophical ideals. They are practical tools that can be used in real-life situations to foster a calm, confident, and more empowered approach to social interactions. Embracing Stoicism is about integrating these principles into your mindset so that each social encounter becomes an opportunity for growth, rather than a source of stress. Take the story of Hannah, a young woman who was plagued by social anxiety for years. She avoided parties, dreaded meetings, and often turned down invitations, believing that she would never fit in or that people would judge her harshly. But after discovering Stoic philosophy, particularly Marcus Aurelius' meditations, Hannah realized that her anxiety was rooted in her own perceptions and expectations. She began to shift her thinking, applying Stoic teachings not just in theory, but in practice. For example, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This powerful insight encouraged Hannah to take ownership of her thoughts and emotions. She stopped seeing her social anxiety as something that happened to her, and instead saw it as something she could choose to respond to. Instead of fighting the discomfort, she learned to observe it, accept it, and then let it pass. This simple yet profound shift gave her the emotional freedom she had longed for. The key to embracing Stoic wisdom in your social life is understanding that every interaction is an opportunity to practice virtue and personal growth. Epictetus' advice to focus on what you can control, your actions, thoughts, and responses, became a mantra for Hannah. She started viewing social situations not as tests of her worth, but as opportunities to practice courage, patience, and kindness. If she stumbled or felt awkward, it wasn't a failure. It was simply a part of being human. With this mindset, she no longer feared the judgment of others because she had already accepted that she could not control their thoughts or opinions. Incorporating this Stoic mindset into your life requires consistent practice, but the rewards are immense. Over time, you begin to notice that social situations, once intimidating, become easier to navigate. The key is not to expect perfection, but to embrace each experience as an opportunity to apply Stoic principles. You will find that with every conversation, every social gathering, you are gradually becoming more comfortable in your own skin. You begin to trust yourself, knowing that regardless of how others respond, you can remain calm, composed, and true to who you are. Hannah's journey is a testament to the power of Stoic wisdom. By practicing the Stoic teachings of self-mastery, acceptance, and perspective, she no longer allowed social anxiety to control her. She realized that the real freedom came not from avoiding social situations, but from confronting them with courage and equanimity. Just like Hannah, you too can embrace these principles and transform your relationship with social anxiety. By living according to Stoic wisdom, you can step into your social life with confidence, knowing that you are enough, just as you are.